Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider, as always, joined by Brandon Crosslin. Brandon, how's it going tonight?
It's a good night, and good to see you again, Ben. And back for another week of Grid Live Encore. Let's get into it.
Yeah, it's a rare opportunity for us here to talk about the Cup Series because the race was postponed from yesterday. They did get some of the laps in, but most of it was postponed to today. And I've got to say, probably the most memorable Dover race in years, at least for my money. I thought it was a very exciting, entertaining race. I almost regret not making the trip there, but I did have a busy weekend heading back up to college for cross-country meet that I was attending.
It made a great lunch break. There was plenty of good battles to speak of, and
Yeah.
it was good to see on a Monday. Usually Monday races, they just kind of try to get it over, but had a lot to offer.
Yeah, I've already seen some tweets, people talking about how the Gen 7 has saved Dover because there is some questioning about its future with the SMI takeover, and talks about bringing back North Wilkesboro and the fairgrounds, and what would that mean for certain tracks having to give up a date. I think certainly Dover made a very good case today that it still deserves one date on the schedule. We'll see what happens going forward. I see one of our regulars, Amber, is in the chat, so hello, Amber. Good evening to you, and looks like she agrees. Best Dover race I've ever seen, certainly since the Gen 6 era, I'd have to say, probably going back a little bit further than that. I think a lot of people thoroughly entertained with that race, but unfortunately, maybe some didn't get to see it or didn't get to come back because it was postponed. Now, Dover is one of the few tracks on the schedule that doesn't have a lighting system yet. There's been some debate over whether or not they even could put lights up if they wanted to because of nearby Air Force Base. I will note that Vegas has lights, and they also have an Air Force Base nearby, so do with that information what you will. But only being a mile long, it doesn't seem like a lighting system would be, we talk about Talladega wanting to install a lighting system. That obviously is a much more extensive and expensive budget or a task which you would be taking to try to put a lighting system up there. It seems like you could probably do it at Dover, all things considered, but they haven't done it yet. That's the reality. So it brings into question once again the issue of start times. And if we had a noon start or a 1 p.m. start, there's a good chance we could have gotten at least enough of the race in to make it official on Sunday and not have to worry about coming back today. So before we get into the race, Brandon, I want to get your opinion on this because it is a major debate right now. What are your thoughts on start times? Are you in the camp that likes the later starts because you think it benefits the West Coast, or would you prefer the noon start time that gets a lot of traction, or are you somewhere in the middle with a 1 p.m. start to try to bridge that gap?
Ben, I'm going to go with a tweet I saw from a West Coast fan this morning. Even they want noon start times. At least some of them do. I think people who want to see really good racing, they prefer noon start times because that's when the track is hot. That's when the tires are going to be slick. And I think you're not really maximizing your on-race product, your track product when you push it back to 3 p.m. And from what we've seen, I think and going back to what you were talking about with the lights, I think there's kind of a dying breed with the tracks that don't have lights anymore. There's something to be said about tracks that don't have lights yet. I think there's some special nuance about having a track where you can't race into the dark because there is no lights. I mean, I don't want to get to the point where every track on the circuit has lights. I think lights it may be a bad opinion, but I think lights don't help the racing too much at when we are just able to make every race a night race.
Well, I do think that there is some merit to that. Like I said, Talladega being in a more rural area and obviously a much bigger speedway, to undertake a project like that would be a very massive project, more so than Dover or Martinsville putting up lights just a handful of years ago. And I do think in a lot of ways, night racing, it looks cool. It looks spectacular at times, but the quality of the racing sometimes I think can be a little overrated. So I certainly am not in the camp that every race should be a night race or anything like that. But I do think for rare instances, we saw it at Auto Club with the Xfinity Series race that had multiple overtime attempts and then red flag there. I can't remember the last time Auto Club Speedway put their lights on for a NASCAR race, but they had them and they worked. So it benefited them in that situation. We have a couple more comments in the chat room. A Day in the Life says the next gen car upset Myles the Monster. I wonder if they're referring to the tire issues that we saw today with the tire wear. And our own Joe Samaniego chiming in here saying, when I was in Alaska, races that started at noon were at 8 in the morning start time, but we woke up or recorded the race. And I think you can look at the Formula One ratings. Those races take place usually around 9 a.m. on the East Coast, even earlier on the West Coast. And the ratings boom that ESPN is enjoying right now, I think that's proof that dedicated fans will certainly make time in their schedules, even if it is an early start, to be able to tune in. Amber chiming in, if the race was Saturday night, we'd be talking about how great it was. I suppose that's possible. Again, it's tough to know because Dover doesn't have lights. We've never seen a nighttime race there, so that would be an interesting experiment if they ever do install a lighting system. And Adam saying, Brandon, nice hat in honor of the month of May. Not long till the
You got it.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Adam gets it. Yeah,
it's going to be a big month here for us at Grid Network as well. And a day in the life chiming in again here with a similar point. If F1 fans can get up early, so can NASCAR fans. So I certainly, people know where I stand. I think, like I said, if we had started the race at noon, we wouldn't be talking about the Cup race right now because we would have talked about it last night. So I think there's certainly something to be said for that. I understand that you want to ride up to the primetime window because in theory that's where majority of the audience would be available. But I think, on weekends, some families probably go to church on Sunday mornings, but, I think most people that work your typical 9-to-5 jobs have off on Sunday. So in theory, they'd be available during the whole day anyway. And then they have to go to work on Monday. So I'm glad they restarted the race at noon because, you never know what the weather is going to do once again. And that let them get, fortunately it wasn't an issue, but that guarantees that you get the full race in. But, you try catering to the primetime audience, then you have to push it to a Monday afternoon when they're all at work anyway. So it'll be interesting to see what the TV ratings are, but it does keep the debate going. So there's certainly going to be some action on Twitter this week as we see the ratings come in and people react to that.
A lot could be said for what Daytona 500s could have been started at noon and prevented having to go into Monday because of Florida weather. I think especially for races in Florida, whether it be street circuit or oval, NASCAR, or whatever, open wheel, doesn't matter. It's just Florida. You need to have your race at noon. End of story.
Yeah, I think, Daytona in particular, there's some people that like the fact that it starts in the afternoon and then ends under the lights, which just happens sometimes because of the weather, other times because they just got a late 3:30 start time and it ends up happening naturally. And fortunately, we don't have weather issues. Other times we do have weather issues and we have to come back on Monday as we did in 2020. So, that's certainly something to consider as well, especially like you said in Florida where, weather delays are a little bit more common. So, like I said, I'm sure that debate will continue on and might be going on here in the chat room. We got another comment from A Day in the Life. Battle shots fired from Formula One to NASCAR and INDYCAR, in my opinion. I guess that's referring to the start times. And yeah, like I said, the ratings tell the whole story there. I think dedicated fans and a passionate fan base will watch the race no matter when it is. And hopefully that'll be proven next year when Las Vegas comes, or when Formula One comes to Las Vegas. I know that's going to be an early morning start for a primetime race on the strip for the East Coast, but I have full confidence that the ratings will not dip because of it. Adam Lemery saying the Daytona 500 should start at noon or 1 p.m. like the good old days. I completely agree with you there, Adam. Now, speaking of people that have to work, Joe Samaniego is joining us from his job right now. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to build the graphics for us for tonight's show for the Cup race. So these screenshots are from Racing Reference. I'll go through the full running order for you all here. Chase Elliott picked up the win. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., a very impressive second for JTG Doherty. Ross Chastain third, Christopher Bell fourth, Alex Bowman fifth, Kyle Larson sixth, Kyle Busch seventh, Chris Buescher eighth, starting on pole. A good weekend for him. Kevin Harvick ninth, Eric Jones rounded out the top 10. Continuing on, Justin Haley was 11th, Martin Truex Jr. 12th, Chase Briscoe 13th, Daniel Suarez 14th, Cole Custer, Bubba Wallace, Michael McDowell, Corey LaJoie, Eric Almirola, and Brad Keselowski rounded out the top 20. As we continue on here, Denny Hamlin, a rough weekend for him. His up-and-down season continues. He ended up 21st, William Byron 22nd, Austin Dillon 23rd, Harrison Burton 24th, Ryan Preece 25th. A strong run, all things considered, for Rick Ware Racing to only be 2 laps down based on their historical standards. I think that's a very solid day for Ryan Preece and that team, and hopefully they'll be able to continue to improve as the season goes on. Ryan Blaney, 26th, Ty Dillon, 27th, Todd Gilliland, Joey Logano, and Tyler Reddick round out the top 30. Rough day for Kurt Busch. He got caught up in an incident. He ends up 31st. Josh Bilicki, 32nd. Tough ending for AJ Allmendinger. Looked like he might be flirting with a top 10 finish in his part-time Cup schedule this year. He ends up 33rd. Cody Ware, 34th. BJ McLeod, 35th. And Brock Beard has his article already up on Austin Cindric over at lastcar.info. He's your last place finisher in the 36th spot. Day in the life coming in here. Does Racing Reference need to display all the American flags? I think we get the idea. Looks like
the same thing.
A Jay Sauter tweet, or Jim Sauter tweet, I should say. I guess referring to the Martinsville thing. Racing Reference covers a bunch of different series, and a lot of them have a lot of international drivers, so I think they're there by default. Of course, NASCAR, the majority of the drivers are Americans, so I guess it ends up looking like there's a lot there, but I think that's standard all throughout the website. So
Daniel Suarez is our international driver.
Yes, Daniel
the country
Suarez
south
from Mexico, and we have had some, Marcus Ambrose from Australia and Juan Pablo Montoya from Colombia. So it's not unprecedented that you get some drivers in there. I guess Jacques Villeneuve would be Canadian doing the Daytona 500 this year. So there are a handful, but yes, obviously NASCAR will be more dominated by the Americans here at home. Now, tire wear was an issue all day. That led to several cautions and incidents. Kyle Busch and Alex Bowman kind of got caught out by an ill-timed caution there. They did recover back into the top 10. But like I said, Chase Elliott broke his winless streak at the track where he and his Hendrick teammates took 1, 2, 3, 4 sweep last year. So as we continue this open segment here, Brandon, I guess the first question is, we look at Hendrick already at this point in the season. All of their drivers have won at least one race. Are they once again the team to beat for the championship? Do you see them going three in a row, whether it's with Elliott, Larson, or somebody else?
Again, Ben, it's hard to tell just before we get into the summer slump of things. But for right now, they definitely are a good contender. Chase Elliott snapping that winless streak. The last time he won was Road America last year. And I think his last oval win was to win the championship in 2020. So it's just been a terrible time for that 9-camp on ovals, which is what once was, their bread and butter. Then they have to kind of mix it with the road courses on the schedule now. Chase Elliott, will he be the one to lead Hendrick? I don't know. Kyle Larson, on the other hand, for Hendrick, he was really figuring out the Gen 6 car in the last year of it, taking on the championship last year. This year, he spun out at Dover today, and he's not quite has been as dominant so far into the season as he was definitely last year, just knocking off the wins left and right. Still showing some consistent speed and finishes, though. So look out for Kyle Larson as we head into the summer. Maybe he'll start to rebound. And I think I said in an earlier episode that he might start rebounding at the Coke 600. That might be at Charlotte, might be where he starts shining strong. Alex Bowman, he's kind of the Hendrick wild card, I think. He's good at just getting those. He likes Dover. He likes these places that they're thinking about getting rid of. Backing into wins apparently, but he's got strength in weird places, and I think that's going to play in his favor as we get towards the end of summer. Maybe he'll be the dominant Hendrick driver, but overall, I think they've got a lot of competition from Trackhouse as for right now. So it's still kind of hard to say.
Well, we'll talk about Chastain here in a bit. Joe coming in here in the chat saying Kyle Larson not looking as dominant as he did last year. I agree to start out. I think, if you had told me that it wouldn't be Larson being Hendrick's first repeat winner, I probably would have been a little bit surprised. I certainly expected that. But last summer is when he went on that stretch, like you said, Brandon, winning 3 in a row, and probably should have been 4 in a row if his tire had lasted just one more turn at Pocono. He would have done something that I don't think's been done since another Hendrick legend, Jimmy Johnson, did it in 2007. That's win 4 Cup Series races in a row. So he came very close to that. So I do think the summertime is when he could probably turn it up and maybe look a little bit more like he did last year. Obviously, the talent is still there, and he does have a win this season. Hendrick are firing on all cylinders. So, I think he's certainly still a championship contender and somebody who is liable to win on any given Sunday.
Yeah, and I don't want to leave William Byron out either. That's the last one. Him and Chastain are the two with multiple victories so far this season.
Yeah, well, another impressive Chevrolet team that we should talk about. How about JTG Doherty Racing, a team that has kind of been resigned to the midfield for the majority of their career as a race team in the Cup Series. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr., we got to give credit where it's due, coming home in an impressive second place today. So, Brandon, what's your reaction to Stenhouse's strong run, and do you think that this is something they can use to build on as the season continues?
That's great. I hope they can build on it. It's kind of hard to build off a really good finish at a mile track. It's not really the majority of your schedule, but it's really a good result for JTG, and glad to see Ricky Stenhouse Jr. kind of be able to help this team progress. And I think it helped them really to get rid of that second car. As much as I like the 37 look, I think it was beneficial for them to get rid of that second car going into the next gen. It really has played out in their favor, and hopefully they're going to have some more top 10 to top 5 finishes and just get out of making mistakes.
Yeah, so I completely agree. I think JTG Doherty did something that I think Rick Ware Racing is benefiting from as well. Like I said, it was a solid day, all things considered, for Ryan Preece when you consider how much Rick Ware and his team have struggled. Slimming down, I think sometimes there's saying addition by subtraction. I think for JTG Doherty, sometimes it is helpful to have a second car so that you can try multiple setups and pool your resources together. But especially for them last year, trying to run one car as an open car without a charter, but I have to imagine that was very difficult. So to just come together and combine their resources and focus on one strong effort this year for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., a 2-time Xfinity Series champion, I think has a lot of talent despite the grief that he's gotten the last couple of years for being a little ambitious and causing some incidents here and there. I think Stenhouse is certainly a capable driver, and JTG Doherty, hopefully, like I said, can build on this, and we'll see some strong runs out of them as the season continues. Just as we've been seeing a lot of strong runs from Trackhouse and Ross Chastain, one of the most pleasant surprises of the season, I think. Another top 3 finish today. So, I've got to ask the question here, Brandon. Is Ross Chastain a legitimate championship contender in 2022?
Yeah, I think we can start to say that. He got it done at COTA, and getting it done at Talladega. At Talladega is more of your wild card kind of event. And then Circuit of the Americas, you got to have that road course prowess, and he showed up to play. And this is a really good sign for Trackhouse. Really great start. Hopefully they can get Daniel Suarez into the mix as well. Daniel Suarez has been pretty consistent as well, but not as much as Ross Chastain. Ross has really blossomed out as the head of Trackhouse Racing so far this year. And it's really been satisfying. If you've been following Ross Chastain for the past few years, it's really nice to see him get this opportunity and actually excel. And it's been really pleasant to watch as an onlooker. He's really got a shot for this championship. Just like Kyle Larson last year blossomed out of nowhere, here comes Ross Chastain going to get that championship in 22.
Yeah, well, certainly I think he's got to be a favorite for the Final Four if he can keep this up. We have a comment here from Amber saying, right, I never thought Chastain would win 2 races today. I thought he might get 2 in a row, and that's true. He did get up there, lead some laps, and looked like he had a shot at getting a 3rd win on the season today, which, looking back at last season, I thought to myself, Chastain obviously had a reputation for overperforming his equipment with JD Motorsports in the Xfinity Series, and then got the opportunity with Chip Ganassi, and, the whole DC Solar thing happened. That's a story for another day, but rebounded nicely with Nice and Colleague and the opportunities he got there. And then Ganassi got him back for their swan song Cup Series season. And, missed the playoffs, didn't look quite like he did, in the lower levels, being able to outperform his equipment, despite the fact that he did have some experience logging laps at Cup tracks with some smaller teams. It was a bit of a disappointing season for Chastain, but he and Trackhouse have turned it up this season. And, at this point, you certainly wouldn't be surprised if he's battling at Phoenix for the championship and maybe even holding that trophy up at the end of the year. He certainly has a lot of talent, and he is showcasing that this season with Trackhouse.
I'd say a round of 8 at least.
Yeah,
a long shot. Round of 8 at least.
That's certainly fair. Amber saying blossoming like a watermelon.
There you go.
Yeah, I guess we go with that theme for
smash them when you're done.
Man there. Yeah. It's I missed that. It it was kind of his tradition, and he didn't get any wins with colleague in 2020, and obviously didn't come into victory lane last year of Ganassi. But it's been nice to see. Maybe not so nice for the Watermelons, but nice for the fans to have some gives the start finish line interview some life, I guess. If we can't get back into victory lane, at least we have that going for us. So
it makes some good memes of Watermelons being nervous whenever Ross Chastain's about to win. I'm getting nervous and sweaty.
Yeah. Well, I know they obviously have got one ready for him in the pits anytime he takes the checkered flag first. So
in the same way you have an American flag for Brad K, you got all these different nuances for each driver every weekend, and you got to know they're somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's nice. It gives drivers something that is kind of their thing whenever they win a race. So obviously Chastain being watermelon farmers, everybody knows that's his thing. Now, one thing that I guess if you had to say there was a negative about the race today, we saw this issue come back up regarding the single lug nuts. That's something that I have to say I wasn't too concerned about at the start of the year. If you asked me where are my hills to die on, how would I rank them in terms of problems I have with NASCAR? It was this and the changing of the numbers. They were probably like 11th and 12th respectively on my list. I have a lot of things that I would fix with this sport before I worry about where the number decals are on the cars and where or how many, I should say, how many lug nuts are attached to supposed stock cars that haven't really been stocked for decades. But we got throwback weekend coming up. I have to say I've been kind of disappointed at how the number placement has affected that. And, also kind of doing a 180 on this single lug nut issue because, it seems that, it can't just be a coincidence with how many of these wheels keep falling off, how many suspensions we're seeing for crew chiefs and teams like that. And, I got to say, I wasn't expecting this to be an issue because, Graham Rahal, what happened to him at the Indy 500 last year, you don't see that every week. That brings a lot of attention because of how uncommon it is for a failure like that to happen. And also, right away, Rahal didn't even make it back out on the racetrack before the wheel came off. Obviously, Formula One's the same way. You're not going to get very far if the wheel isn't secure. But we've had this issue now with NASCAR drivers pulling out and not realizing that the wheel isn't attached. And, obviously it ends up being a hefty fine for the team. And, you lose your crew chief for 4 weeks. It's a very stiff penalty. So you would think crews would be as careful as they could, as careful as they could be, knowing the penalty that comes if you do lose a wheel. Yet we're still seeing this. So, Brandon, what's your level of concern now that we're about a third of the way into the season and we're seeing so many of these issues continuing on these pit stops here of these new single lug nuts on the next gen car?
I think first I want to know maybe where you're looking at from it. Do you think it's more of like a team issue that like they're not focusing on it enough, or do you think it's more of an upper level like NASCAR and Goodyear?
I think it might be both, because I think, teams, like I said, you obviously are going to do everything you can not to lose your crew chief for 4 weeks and, pay that massive fine, which seems to be the standard penalty. I would expect that to be coming towards Hamlin and Allmendinger's teams later this week if NASCAR has any consistency in them, which I know has been they've been consistently inconsistent in the past. But I would expect them to come down with the same ruling this weekend. Obviously we do only have part of a season to go by, so like I said, I'm not an engineer or anything. I don't know for sure, but I got to think, like I said, teams have to be careful. I just don't know if it's the best design. It's one of those. It goes back to like for people to think about change for the sake of change. I think that's been a criticism of mine with a lot of things that NASCAR's done over the years. Like, did the next gen car really need to go to a single lug nut to resemble sports cars, or why was the change made? And, it doesn't really look good that the change was made now that we're having these issues that we didn't have when you had the 5 lug nuts, or even when you got 4 of the 5 lug nuts secure. Usually that was good enough for them to be, for you to not have to worry about a loose wheel. It would be a smaller monetary fine if they discover that in post-race inspection. But, when there's only one and you don't get it on there and you think you might have it on there, but you don't, it obviously creates some problems.
Yeah. And does it truly cut costs for NASCAR to go from 5 to 1? I mean,
That's a
what
good
kind of
question
money?
as well. Yeah.
What kind of money are we talking here? And yeah, I think they really just did it for a stylistic choice. Uh, we would love to think that Goodyear and NASCAR are actually looking at this with the same intent that we are, and hopefully by next year, maybe there will be some sort of change, not for the sake of change, but for the sake of, hey, we made a mistake this year. Here's what we can improve on, and here's how we're going to fix it. Because yeah, it's obviously way too big of an issue. It's not just like a little fluke here and there. It's been week after week, we've seen little things here and there happen. And I like how you pointed out Graham Rahal's incident, turn 2 at Indianapolis. My wife and I actually saw that last year in person, and that was a scary sight. And that was on the team there. But with NASCAR and this new Goodyear single lug, it's hopefully it's getting some bigger attention than just the teams.
Yeah, we have some comments in the chat here. One from Amber saying RFK studs change at Daytona. Was that a roll in the wheels? And the lug's not getting tight. Why no wheel tethers? I've got to be honest. I'm, like I said, not an engineer, not somebody who works on the car, so I don't know that I'm best equipped to answer that question. But I'm sure a lot of race fans do have those questions. What was the purpose behind the change? Maybe not even necessarily being opposed to change, but wanting there to be good reason. If we're going to fix something that isn't necessarily broken, there should be good reason to believe that it's actually an improvement. And unfortunately, I don't see how it's been an improvement so far. Again, I don't work on the cars, but I'm just speaking from an outsider's perspective here. Giving my honest opinion, I don't like the fact that we're seeing so many of these wheels come off, and I think a lot of fans had that concern, and that concern is now being realized. A Day in the Life says it's the team's problems. Testing of next gen showed that 5 smaller lugs on the wheel would compromise the strength of the wheel. Well, there you go. That's something that, like I said, I'm going to feel like a broken record here, but I'm not somebody that works on the car. So, it's not something that I was aware of. I try to keep up with the next gen development. And, I think the biggest concern was the safety issues. But, again, even if we grant that to NASCAR, it's only true if the lug nut is actually secure. If it's not secure, then, it doesn't matter. It's going to bounce right off. So, I think it's certainly something we're going to have to continue to keep an eye on as the season continues. And hopefully, NASCAR can take a look at all of these failures. The teams can take a look at all these failures to get the lug secure and see if there's any improvements that can be made to make it easier for the teams. Or, maybe it's just a coincidence that, we're having 1 or 2 teams a week fail to do this and they need to get their act together. Like I said, it's probably a combination of both, but it is a sign of concern, especially if, it comes out in the middle of the track. You've got a giant wheel bouncing up and down the racetrack as cars are speeding by under green, for green flag pit stops. It's a safety concern as well.
Well, we're coming up to the Goodyear 400 at Darlington. So if you're going to be hosting that race and you got the classic look tire, it's going to look really bad if you have a lot of single lug issues.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a big stage here soon.
Yeah. Certainly Goodyear want to put on a good showing and not have any issues in the race that they're sponsoring as well. Not just as the official tire of NASCAR, but also sponsoring the race. So it's going to be interesting to see how that continues on as the season goes on. But in the meantime, we've got the series that we regularly cover here to get to on this show. So let's jump into that. And we'll start with the Indy Lights series. And it was a near perfect weekend for Linus Lundqvist, who took pole position, converted it to a wire-to-wire victory, holding off a late charge from Benjamin Peterson. Despite the weather conditions that led to a wet start, the majority of the race was relatively clean. We did see a couple of cars go off course, including the Christian Bogle and Christian Rasmussen. However, with a couple of minutes to go, Andretti teammates clashed when Hunter McElroy dove in too deep on Matt Brabham and ended up taking himself out of the race. Brabham was able to limp home to a P7 finish, but the St. Petersburg winner fell to third in points behind Lundqvist and Peterson. Now, Indy Lights, of course, have been off for a couple of months, but they won't have to wait so long this time. They only have to wait 2 weeks. They'll return on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course in a couple of weekends when they join the INDYCAR series there. I personally missed the Freedom 100, though. I wish we could get that race back. It's unfortunate, but that's not on the schedule again because that always put on a fantastic show and, in particular, a fantastic finish. But it will be good to see the Lights cars not have to wait 2 months this time before we see them back out on track.
Yeah, I had no idea that I was going to be at the last Freedom 100. That's depressing, but hopefully that's going to come back. I mean, that's just the Indy Lights marquee event, and it's a shame that that's gone on Carb Day. That was a fun race, though, at Barber. Barber's just a world-class road course. And definitely, if you're ever going to be in the Birmingham area, you need to go out and see Barber. Huge motorcycle museum and also some Formula One cars in there as well. But world-class facility in the U.S., and it was a really good race in the wets for Indy Lights.
Yeah, the wet to dry, aspect of it as well. Drivers trying to go offline, keep as much coolness in the tires as possible. It was certainly a great race and then a fantastic finish as well. But I try not to speak it into existence. So you've been to the last Freedom 104 now. Hopefully,
for now, yes, for now. I don't believe in that, no. Yeah. But
hopefully, the series gets back. The series finds its footing again, and we can get that event back because, like you said, it's a marquee event, and it's a shame that we've been missing it for the last few years. But hopefully, we see its return one day.
Hashtag save the Freedom 100.
Absolutely. That's something that has trended on Twitter in the past, and I'm sure will be in about a month's time, when Carb Day's coming up and everything. Now let's move on to the ARCA Menards Series East. Sammy Smith will not be sweeping the season like we've been saying might be a possibility of how strong that 18 team has looked, but Taylor Gray picked up the first win of his career in the East Division, so he now has wins in both the ARCA Menards Series East and West and the main ARCA National Touring Series as well, picking up that victory on Friday at Dover. And Smith ended up finishing the race in 5th. That allows Gray to close to within 2 points of a lead in the point standings. The championship, I think, is clearly now a 2-horse race between Smith and Gray. It's not going to be a cakewalk for Sammy Smith like some might have been predicting as you look at the rest of the results here. Keeping with the theme of car count trouble, we only had 15 cars in the race, and of those 15, with no disrespect to Brad Smith or the Fast Track Racing teammates here, you see 12th through 15th. They were well off the pace, and they're doing what they can with the budgets that they have. But it created some dangerous situations. There was one of if you saw the tweet from ARCA highlighting the sweet moves of the race, there was one where Brad Smith was kind of getting, lapped at looked like light speed almost with a couple of cars coming by. He was so off the pace, and at a track like Dover, there's a safety aspect as well if you can't reach minimum speed. So, Brandon, I feel like every time we have an East race, this conversation comes back up. We have a car count issue, and it's great that we have some field fillers out there who are doing their best. But when you consider you put 15 cars, only 10 of which finished the race at anywhere close to a reasonable speed at a track like Dover, not to mention you're charging nearly $30 for a general admission ticket.
Oh, don't get you started on that.
Yeah. I mean, certainly for Delawareans, you wonder why the stands look so empty on a Friday. We've got one more race coming up. That's a standalone for East, and then it's all combination races for there. Should this have been a combination race with the main ARCA series? Should it have just been an ARCA race, by itself? Does ARCA need to raise the minimum speed at tracks like this? What's your take on the ARCA East racing this weekend?
It's pretty clear where we stand. It should have been all ARCA together. There's no reason for having that kind of race separate. And also these two questions kind of go together. If you had them together, then you probably would be able to justify the ticket pricing that they're boasting at ARCA with Dover. And also raising the minimum speed. It's too high of a series, in my opinion, to let guys just run around there like they're on a Saturday cruise or a Friday cruise in this case. And then, like you said, no disrespect to these teams, that's the best they can put out, but they need to be at least given the resources to be able to put together a competitive car to at least be at minimum speed. I mean, you're going to be pulled over on the highway if you're not going minimum speed. As a civilian, why do we make it any different for the ARCA Menards series?
Well, on that note, like I said, I was traveling this weekend and, driving on the interstate where it says speed limit 65, but in reality, everybody's doing 70, 75. They're even getting up to 80 in the left lane. And below the 65, it said minimum 40. And I thought to myself, I can't imagine going 40 miles an hour right now because I would just be a roadblock with these guys for, in some cases, doing literally twice my speed because they always put 65, but it's human nature to go a little bit faster than that and try to, push the limit, not have to be on the road for longer than you need to be. And they don't usually pull people over if you're just going 5 or even 10 miles an hour above the speed limit. It's more about staying with the flow of traffic. to be going 40 miles an hour on the interstate, you're going to get run over. And similarly,
you were being dangerous.
Yeah, you're being dangerous. And, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, including the drivers of these teams here.
Yeah.
Brad Smith in particular, I hate to kind of throw him under the bus here because he's a great guy. And, it was very heartwarming to see him finally get that top 10 at Winchester a couple years ago. But, there's a reason why he was parked for being too slow. If you're going to come out to these races, there needs to be, a minimum speed that is attainable that, if you're just above it, you're not getting into that danger zone. And, unfortunately, I think a line was kind of crossed there.
I'm glad you brought that up. It actually, it absolutely is an issue of safety.
Yeah. And
we're talking about here.
I think like you mentioned, I think this should have been an ARCA race, not just an ARCA East race. And it is a shame because back in the K&N days, it was a K&N East race and you had pretty much a full field. And of course, the car count issues being a dead horse. We've been talking a lot about that this season on this show. So unfortunately, I think something needs to change because you can't be charging that much money for a 10-car race to begin with. Obviously it helps to have the field fillers add a little bit to the car count, but at the same time, you can make the argument, what's the point if they're not going to be running a competitive speed here? Day in the Life saying, happy to see someone on YouTube follows Indy Lights. Any opinions on the Freedom 100? I think we gave a pretty strong endorsement of those, but also pointing out, I know it's costly for the teams. That is true. So like I mentioned, I know Roger Penske, since he took over, has been trying to get the finances in order. Hopefully the health of the series will get to the point where we can bring that race back because it certainly was a spectacle and the crown jewel of the Indy Lights series.
It's a thriller for sure for all those fans that show up skipping work. They want to see some racing action, and that's exactly what they pay for is a Freedom 100.
Yes, and of course, Amber pointing out here on our rundown, Raja Caruth, fourth, much better than he fared in the Xfinity race. Unfortunately, he had an issue there that left him down the running order. I think it might have even been in last place. I think Brock's article was on him for the Xfinity race. But fourth place finish for, like I said, friend of the show who's been on Life on the Grid before. Always great to see Raja have a strong run. And, like I said, it's great to see him make the trip out as well. I know he's competing for the ARCA Championship this year, and we're expecting big things from him this season. So a solid run for him. And unfortunately, I think, like you mentioned, there's something that needs to change about this race, because I feel like the East Series does need more standalone races because already 3 of the 7 are combo races. But, if you can't bring more than a dozen competitive cars out to the track, you have a situation like this where you're overcharging the fans for a lower quality show. And, you have the field fillers out there taking up space and being roadblocks because they can't hit the minimum speed, even though they are trying their best. Again, we don't want to give the impression that we're disrespecting these teams at all. It's just the opposite. We want to see them out there. We want to see them have good runs, but it's just the reality of the situation. Yeah,
if we're honest, the ones where it's the low car count and field the bulk of the field can't maintain minimum speed. If we're honest, that they were bust races, and they're much better together with the main series together.
Just to give people an idea, if you watch these ARCA races, particularly the East and the West, the term Reese's sweet move of the race. I think Reese's are I hope they're certainly paying Charlie Krall a lot of money because he throws their name out there quite a bit, trying to come up with moments during the race that could be deemed the sweet move for a great pass or a great wreck avoidance or something like that. One of the sweet move nominees this weekend was Taylor Gray's burnout. So
that is to say, there were no sweet moves. There was just the victory burnout.
Pretty much. There were a couple of passes here and there, but Taylor Gray pretty much dominated. And it like I said, when you only put 10 competitive cars on the track, I don't know why people expect much different. It's for a track like Dover, you need more than that to put on a good show. And unfortunately, the East Series just isn't there right now. Amber coming in with another question here. They don't do local races and the ARCA main event. Not sure exactly what that's
like. Do they have
here
local races at Dover before? I guess to set up.
Yeah, well, at Dover, I would say ARCA East almost is your local undercard race there. I can speak from experience when I went to New Jersey Motorsports Park for the East race in 2018. They had some some BMW racing going on in between qualifying and the East race. So, I think sometimes you certainly do bring some local drivers and local racing out there, but that's when East is your main draw, or, these tracks on the West Coast where the West Series races at, would be the same way. But when East is a companion, it's a companion weekend with Cup and Xfinity at Dover. You've already got so much on-track action going on. I think East actually plays that role at a track like Dover. So, again, like I said, I think something needs to change for this race here. It breaks my heart to see the car count so low, at my home track. But unfortunately, we do have to keep in mind, how much we're charging the fans for the return on investment they're getting. I think something has to change sooner rather than later.
Yeah, yes, it does.
So moving on to the Saturday race, the Xfinity Series, and Josh Berry picked up his first win of the season and the third of his career. His teammate Justin Allgaier followed behind in second, ahead of Ty Gibbs and Noah Gragson, and we saw some great action between those two drivers, some hard racing there. There might be a rivalry brewing, maybe even for the championship with the strong starts to the season that they've had. And Sam Mayer was up there rounding out the top five as well. So a great day for Junior Motorsports. All four of their cars ended up in the top five. So Brandon, my first question in this part of the show, we're in an era of pay drivers where sponsorship is more valuable than ever. So in this era, how inspiring is it to see Josh Berry go from a weekly late model driver to what looks like now to be an Xfinity Series championship contender?
It's fantastic to watch, Ben, and I think it's going to be a great thing not only for grassroots fans, but also grassroots drivers who may have even given up hope on well, I'll never be in the Xfinity Series. It's just all rich guys, kids with money, and they've just got the sponsorship to back them up and keep them there, even if they do poorly. Josh Berry was a Cars Tour driver, late model driver, grassroots, raced at Hickory, raced at all the famous short tracks, and here he is winning at Dover in the Xfinity Series, and put some impressive numbers last year, part-time with Junior Motorsports, and full-time he's going to be a championship contender right up there with the rest of Junior Motorsports. Fantastic job for Josh Berry, and it's going to be a good inspiration, I hope, that may save part of our sport, both on the fans and the drivers.
Yeah, great for Tire Pros and a couple other companies as well that have stepped up to give Berry that sponsorship. And credit to Dale Jr. as well for giving him this opportunity in a limited schedule last year, and then to be able to put a full-time schedule together this year. I think Berry's talent level certainly is deserving of that. He always just needed that extra step of sponsorship, which is just as important, if not more important, than the talent aspect these days in order to get to this level. And Berry's certainly proving that he belongs. And again, would not be surprised to see him contending for a championship and maybe even winning one as the season goes on.
Now, if Teresa would just let us stretch the inside of the 8 just a little bit,
yeah,
it'd be perfect.
That would be nice. I must say, the Childress team as well. I know they brought the 8 back.
Yeah.
Not
really, kind of, but not really.
Not really. Yeah.
Not enough.
I got to say, while we're on that subject, it did that the one last ride piece that Budweiser put together was beautiful. But it did frustrate me quite a bit when they showed that scene of a 2004 Daytona 500, and you can clearly tell they photoshopped the side of that 8 car as Junior celebrating his Daytona win. So it's a very frustrating situation there. But for Josh Berry, I'm sure he's not too worried about it. He certainly cares more about the opportunities that he's gotten, and he continues to make the most of those. Now, sticking with Junior Motorsports here, great day for Noah Gragson as well. Like I mentioned, coming home with the top 5, and he also picked up the $100,000 Dash for Cash bonus. AJ Allmendinger as well finished in 6th. That extends his top 10 streak yet another week, and he currently leads the points by 43 over Gibbs and Gragson, who are tied for 2nd. So, Brandon, here we are again. The streak continues. Allmendinger has only run 2 Xfinity races at Darlington, where we're going next. They were both last season. He ended up 13th and 20th. So is next weekend the week that the top 10 streak finally comes to an end?
Usually I'm always for drivers when you give me a chance to have a prediction like this. I think this time Allmendinger's not going to be so fortunate. I think Darlington is just a track. I mean, it's too tough to tame. It's in the name. I mean, it's a tough joint, and I don't think Allmendinger is going to fare very well next weekend. And I think he's not going to make the top 10. Probably will have some trouble and have to fall back to the back and climb his way before the end.
Yeah, well, ever since he's come back and he kind of had this career resurgence with Kaulig, it's been very impressive. But you look at his results last year, he did struggle quite a bit at Darlington. It is a difficult track for a lot of drivers, but I think, if there's a weekend where you can expect the top 10 streak to come to an end, this is probably more likely that weekend than what we saw at Dover, which historically has actually been one of his better oval tracks, certainly on the Cup side of his career. Early on with Richard Petty Motorsports, I remember him having some strong runs there. So not too surprising to see him continue that streak this weekend, but might be a little surprising if he's able to extend it even further. Again, I wouldn't put it past him with how well he's run, obviously, to start the year. But if last season's any indication, this might be the week, unfortunately, where it ends here. And
that's right, Amber. Yeah, you got to respect Amber's the lady in black.
Looking forward to it as well. Just circling back here, Day in the Life saying, I would love to see more coverage of development series in the United States. I like online streaming with Flow Racing, Motorsport, and the race. And, like I said, it's been great to see Peacock broadcast the Indy Lights season as well. Just being able to have the opportunity to, if you miss it live, even go back and catch up on that. And ESPN Plus as well with the series that we cover here with Formula 3 and giving ESPN cable subscribers access to Formula 2 with the ESPN 3 streaming channel. It is great to see that they're giving them some opportunities to shine and some TV deals. We've been talking a little bit on the other Grid Live shows about the W Series getting this new deal with ESPN. So that will hopefully raise its visibility here in the States as well.
And if you download the Road to Indy app, that's your way to watch USF 2000s. Although it's not really like motion cameras, it's just like security camera kind of footage, but it's still live with the radio call.
Yeah, and it's certainly better than the alternative, which is nothing. So, if you like this racing that we cover here on this show, certainly be sure to check those out. I'm glad you brought up USF 2000 because I'm going to speak about that a little bit more in my one shining moment. Yeah, excellent. Nice segue here. But I'll pass it off to you first. What's your one shining moment this weekend, Brandon?
One shining moment. I told you backstage, it's got to be Josh Berry and this first win in 2022. I think he's going to have some more before it's all said and done. And he's going to be one of your championship contenders along with the rest of junior motorsports. Josh Berry is my one shining moment.
And as you see here, I know we don't usually cover the USF 2000 series in full here on this show, but I do want to give my one shining moment to the two winners this weekend. Joe was very kind and built the graphics for us. Myles Rowe winning race 1, and Myles has a fantastic story going for him. He's a championship contender, but he needs our help. He needs funding and he needs sponsorship to continue with his season in this championship fight, because there's no guarantee that he's even going to make the race 2 weeks from now at the IMS road course. So he needs some sponsorship. He needs some backing. He started to GoFundMe to try to help in any way that people can. And it certainly would be a shame if his championship run came to an end because of this issue, because he's shown with his talent that he certainly is a championship contender. And it was great to see him do everything he needs to do to continue to fight for that funding and go out and win another race here. And I also want to give a shout out to a name that West Series fans will certainly recognize from 2019, Jagger Jones, winning the second race this weekend in USF 2000. And we'll complete the results here for you as you go down the order. Those are my one shining moments. Great runs for Myles Rowe and Jagger Jones this weekend in USF 2000. We have a comment from Amber, how much money he needs, a link to the GoFundMe. I saw there was a link on Twitter. I might try to circle back here once we get off the air. Maybe I'll share it in the comments. But, racing is an expensive sport. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know what the exact number is, if his goal that he has on the GoFundMe is for the full season, or if it's just to try to get to the next race, or what the deal is there. But there's certainly some efforts trying to do everything they can to help him continue with his quest to win this championship.
Well, the way the past couple of years have been going, he needs to be knocking on every cryptocurrency's business's door to get something on that car.
You got to be careful though. See how well that worked for Brandon Brown and a couple of other people. So
it's okay. It works for a couple of races.
It does. Yeah. Well, maybe you can talk to Landon Castle. I think Castle's been able to make the crypto thing work for him. And, it was interesting to see what happened with Josh Wise all those years ago with Dogecoin, kind of when Bitcoin was in its infancy. So it has worked in the past, but, a lot of people have also gotten screwed by it as well. So, that is an area where you have to be careful. I'm not a financial advisor or crypto expert at all, but, whatever it takes, hopefully Myles Rowe can continue on and find that funding to continue his season and not have it end early. So that is going to do it for another episode of Grid Live Encore. If you liked what you saw tonight, if you like what you see throughout all of our grid programming, consider joining us on Patreon. And thanks, as always, to Colin Deschelle, Mark, and Robin, who have already invested in the Grid Network. If you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can also buy me a coffee. There's a link in the video description to that as well. And, of course, thank you, as always, to Ed, Amber, and Zachary, who have already done that. While you're here, follow us on all our social media platforms as well. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Grid is on all of them. And thanks, as always, as well to our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code GRIDnet gives you $5 to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now, Wednesday, Grid Tonight will be back with Adam and Kobe. Thursday, Joe and Daniel host the Women in Motorsports program. On Friday, we have some extra Grid programming coming your way. Life on the Grid is back with myself and Kobe Lambeth, so be sure to stick around for that. We'll have Grid Live pre-race and Grid Live wrap-up on Saturday and Sunday as always. And then Brandon and I will see you back here Monday night for another episode of Grid Live Encore. We'll have Trucks and Xfinity at Darlington for the throwback weekend. And ARCA East has a rare back-to-back race weekend as they are at the Nashville Fairgrounds for what will be their final standalone race of the season before they have a few more combo races with the main ARCA series to close out their year. Brandon, any final thoughts before we close out the show?
Final thought is it is the month of May, so expect things on my end to get more and more Indy-fied before we get to the end of the month. It's going to be an interesting month of May.
Yeah, certainly an exciting time for race fans as we continue to look forward to that. So for Brandon Crosslin, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you back here next week.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.